1982, famed horror director John Carpenter would release a sleeper movie that would redefine practical filmmaking and become recognized as the greatest of its field. A re-envisionment of the story that ignited the boom of the 1950s B movement and set the bar for cinematic special effects. Originally considered a failure and almost ending the career of its director, the movie would defy its critics and become recognized as a landmark picture and one of the most heralded movies in the history of horror. So how did this all happen? Well, sit back and relax and discover everything you ever wanted to know about John Carpenter's The Thing. In 1938, author John Campbell Jr.'s short story Who Goes There was printed in the first issue of Astounding Science Fiction magazine. Working under the pseudonym Don A. Stewart, a play on his wife's name, Donna Stewart, the 12-part story told of a shape-shifting life form with the ability to perfectly imitate anything it consumes. Taking inspiration from the Agatha Christie novel And Then There Were None, Campbell would apply the paranoia of being locked inside with a killer but not knowing who the antagonist is. Having previously explored the concept of a shape-shifting alien in his short story Brain Stealers from Mars, by combining his creature concept with the suspense of the Christie novel, the novella Who Goes There would become the result. The novella would be recognized by RKO Pictures in 1951 and was adapted into the motion picture The Thing from Another World. Directed by Howard Hawks, the movie took several liberties with the source material, presenting the creature as a plant-based life form, similar in appearance to Frankenstein's monster, but with the ability to read minds. The movie proved to be one of the most inspirational of its time, paving the boom of sci-fi B-movies featuring alien invaders. Overshadowed by more successful pictures, The Thing from Another World became almost forgotten. In 1975, at the Vine Street Hollywood Bob's Big Boy restaurant, a casual meeting between USC graduates Stuart Cohen and John Carpenter would involve a discussion of a mutual love of Who Goes There. Cohen, an upcoming producer who had intended to adapt the novella to screen, and Carpenter, an upcoming director working on the feature film Assault on Precinct 13. It was Cohen's intention to ask Carpenter to direct the project. Submitting the idea to Turman Foster Productions, he was rejected on the grounds of the chameleonic nature of the creature's body mass being adaptive to the amount it consumes and would not be possible. Ever persistent, Cohen approached Universal Studios, who would ultimately agree to funding the project, purchasing the rights to both the story and the original movie from RKO. Still intending Carpenter to direct, Universal were oncoming to hiring a relative unknown director and pitched the project to Tobe Hooper. Following the success of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, he was still under contract. After submitting a screenplay with Texas Chainsaw co-author Kim Henkel, Universal were unimpressed with the direction they intended to take the picture, writing it as a somewhat sequel to the 1951 movie that would see an obsessed sea captain hunt for the creature. The project was ultimately put into limbo. Following the success of Star Wars and Ridley Scott's Alien, a movie that was also inspired by Who Goes There, science fiction had once again become a hot commodity in cinema. Considering John Landis and Ridley Scott, at this time John Carpenter had achieved international recognition as a horror director, having achieved two of the biggest alternate pictures in recent times. Trying for several months to find a screenwriter who would honor the original novella, Carpenter himself submitted a draft screenplay that he found to be a faithful adaptation. With Universal being sold on the scene which involved a blood test, they greenlighted the project. Eventually enlisting Bad News Bears writer Bill Lancaster to complete the screenplay, he would adapt several elements to make a more comprehensible picture. Completing the script on July 28, 1981, he reduced the original 37 characters to 12. For the leading role of MacReady was retconned as a former helicopter pilot who'd served time in Vietnam. There were many actors in the running, but Carpenter would ultimately cast Kurt Russell, who he had previously worked with in Escape from New York, He would also rehire cinematographer Dean Cundy, who he had worked with on Halloween. Originally named Sanchez and then Simmons, the character Windows was named by the actor. When auditioning, wore sunglasses and insisted he be called Windows. Carpenter liked the concept and renamed the character. Ernie Hudson and Carl Weathers were considered for Childs before going to theatrical actor Keith David, which would be his first cinematic appearance. Lee Van Cleef and Isaac Hayes were considered for Gary before going to Donald Moffat. Brian Dennehy was originally cast as Copper for a reported $50,000. After learning of Kurt Russell's casting, he increased his demand to $400,000, but was subsequently removed from the picture. With cast and crew in tow, the project was granted a budget of $50 million, with a release date set for the summer of 1982. Demented Pictures is assisted by Patreon support. If you'd like to help the show develop, please check the description box below. If you're unable to contribute, please consider liking and sharing this video to help the channel grow. Before filming began, budget distribution was one of the first priorities. Due to the sub-zero conditions of the shoot, a reported $750,000 was allocated for keeping the cast and crew warm. Originally offered $200,000 for the effects, this would be expended to $1.5 million to accommodate the extensive demands of the project. Following 2 weeks of rehearsals, on July 24, 1981, filming began in Juneau, Alaska, chosen for its bleak snowy landscape. Setting up base atop the Taku Glacier, principal photography would shoot the pursuit of Jed, the Alaskan Malamute hybrid wolf, who interestingly would later become a leading star in the '91 Disney picture White Fang. One of the major issues with the location would be access, as harsh weather conditions would not safely allow entry, but only for a single month. During filming, as temperatures would reach a reported -15 degrees, would result in camera lenses constantly fogging. To combat the issue, the cameras remained in a near-frozen state to allow the lenses to perfectly acclimatize, although curing the fogging issue would ultimately lead to many of the lenses cracking in the cold. There was a lost scene involving the Norwegian helicopter crash. Unable to achieve a convincing shot, the scene was cut due to its poor translation of miniature to screen, but later referred to as something out of Team America World Police. Still striving to achieve the scene, they were offered to have a real helicopter stage a crash, an offer that was ultimately vetoed as the risks involved were considered too dangerous. With no longer requiring the lavish landscapes of Juneau, on December 2nd, production moved to Stewart, British Columbia, known as the snowfall capital of North America, for its ease of access and outstanding scenery. However, there was an unforeseen issue. Filming at the peak of summer, coupled with the low cloud cover and reflective surface of the snow, the majority of the crew suffered heavy sunburn. In order to smoothly transition the picture between the two shooting locations, a blue barrel was placed in the foreground of both sets, appearing as a geographical anchor to flawlessly sell the illusion that only a single location was used. For the internal shots, fake sets were built in Stage 27 of Universal Studios that were refrigerated to 40 degrees despite the recorded 100-degree ambient temperature. Insisting the creature not be a guy in a rubber suit, Carpenter searched for an FX artist with a flair for transformations. Originally approaching Rick Baker, who received mass acclaim for his work on An American Werewolf in London, was unavailable at the time, beginning work on David Cronenberg's Videodrome and Michael Jackson's Thriller. His second choice was 21-year-old Rob Bottin, who headed the effects in the equally impressive Joe Dante's The Howling. Hoping for an acting role, having appeared as Blake in Carpenter's previous feature, The Fog, Bottin pitched for the role of Palmer, but was denied, unaware of the extent of the practical demands of the project. When designing the creature in the ice, he would reuse the mold of Robert Picardo's Howling makeup bust to create the split-faced Thing. Taking inspiration from his own dreams, his designs would incorporate twisted flesh and inconceivable body forms. Under the former tutelage of FX master Stan Winston, Bettine would work so extensively he would live on set, never stopping before succumbing to double pneumonia and a bleeding ulcer. Hospitalized, his former tutor Stan Winston would step in for a single scene. Having had his fill of working with dogs, Winston would direct the first transformation of the Thing, known as the Blossom Tongue, and would jokingly refer to the prop as the Pissed Off Cabbage, refusing credit for his work, insisting that the credit should go exclusively to Bettine. Winston's humble nature would be honored and receive nothing more than a special thanks. For what would become the most iconic scene of the movie, known as the Norris Thing, would be broken down into multiple elements. For the effect of Dr. Copper losing his arms, fake forearms were created to take the chomp, made of wax bones, rubber veins, and jello, switching the actor for real double amputee Joe Corone to visualize the physical damage, who was also wearing a latex mold of Richard Dysart's face. For the cadaver of Norris, moldings were taken for the majority of Charles Hallahan's body. Fashioning the proxy of latex and fiberglass, the preparation for the shoot took a reported 10 hours. Originally unhappy with the geyser of blood that masked the effect, the shot had to be reset. For the extension of Norris's neck, the prop was filmed with melted plastic and heated bubblegum, using a hydraulic ram to drive the head from the torso. On the initial take, following the burst of McCready's flamethrower, ignited the fumes of a gas-powered firebar, which in turn caused the Norris proxy to explode and destroying several months of preparation. Interestingly, the head spider would later be pastiched in Andy Muschietti's It Chapter 2. For the final touches of the picture, establishing matte paintings were done by Albert Whitlock, who had previously worked with famed director Alfred Hitchcock. The title reveal was in homage to the 1951 opening, created by using a fish tank filled with smoke, using a rear projected light with a negative template of the logo on one side and a sheet of black polythene on the other. The effect was created by burning the polythene to reveal the title. Although being a composer himself, The Thing would be the first movie that John Carpenter wouldn't score. Hiring famed composer Ennio Morricone to add a Western flavor to the picture, unexpectedly, Morricone would work the score in the style of John Carpenter, incorporating synthesizers with orchestra to create an hour-long minimal and atmospheric piece to emphasize the cold emptiness of the Antarctic and further the feeling of suspense and paranoia. All extra music cues were written by longtime collaborator Alan Howarth. For the finishing touches, prop maker Susan Turner created the Thing's spacecraft to establish the creature's alien origins, and finally, a single stop-motion sequence for the final revelation of the Thing's ultimate form. Following several months of post-production, the movie was ready for its world premiere. Prior to release, in order to promote the movie, famed artist Drew Struzan created the artwork overnight. Responsible for many of the most iconic movie posters of all time, the piece that depicted an unknown character in Arctic clothing with light emitting from the face was designed to emphasize the mystery of the antagonist. To also help promote the movie, Fangoria magazine hosted an artistic competition to draw what they believed the Thing would look like, the winner receiving an all-expenses-paid trip to Universal Studios. Opening on June 25, 1982, in 840 theaters, the movie competed against Poltergeist, E.T., and Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, which was released on the same day. At the Hollywood premiere, the event was hosted by famed horror pinup girl Cassandra Peterson as her alter ego, Elvira, allowing a free viewing to patrons who dressed in their favorite monster costumes. At the time of release, the world had recently been exposed to the AIDS virus. The concept of a deadly viral disease that could show no physical signs was a prominent fear of the time, further enhancing the horror of The Thing, to which many would either commend or avoid the picture. Opening at number 8 in the US box office and returning a profit of $4.6 million, the movie wasn't considered a failure, but drastically underachieved Universal's expectations. Releasing to almost unanimous scathing reviews, criticized for its nihilistic tone and reliance on gore effects, Roger Ebert referred to it as a barf-bag movie, Carpenter himself being referred to as a pornographer of violence, which had a profound impact upon his future career. As a result of the lackluster performance, he would be denied direction of Stephen King's project Firestarter and became aloof to the project for several years. The most scathing review came from Christian Nyby, director of the 1951 movie, who quoted, "If you want blood, go to a slaughterhouse. All in all, it's a terrific commercial for J&B Scotch." By the second week of screening, The Thing had lost over 50% of its supporting theaters. The movie was considered nothing more than a mediocre picture, ultimately branding Carpenter as an out-of-touch director. Receiving no mentions in the 55th Academy Awards, the soundtrack did receive a Razzie for Worst Musical Score. Interestingly, famed director Quentin Tarantino would use parts of the score in his western The Hateful Eight, also starring Kurt Russell, which would ironically win both a Golden Globe and the Academy Award for Best Original Score. Ultimately earning $19.6 million, it wasn't until future reviewings that many critics were able to see the ahead-of-its-time direction that the movie would be reassessed as an overlooked classic. Upon home video and TV syndication, The Thing would find its audience, blown away by the effects, characters, and atmosphere. One question that loomed over the movie was the ambiguous ending, leaving the viewers guessing the fate of MacReady and Childs. Intentionally done by Carpenter as sequel bait, but also to leave the picture in mystery. Several endings were conceived. The originally intended ending was that both Childs and MacReady would reveal themselves as the Thing. Another was to show birds flying from the outpost to imply the Thing had escaped. The ending chosen, although not implied, is that both survivors would allow themselves to freeze to death to save humanity from the potential infection and send the Thing dormant. There was also a fourth ending, which would prove MacReady was human. This conclusion, however, was deemed too cliché and favored the ambiguous ending seen in the final cut. Interestingly, it was suggested that the drink given to Childs was in fact a Molotov cocktail, and his lack of reaction to drinking fuel revealed his identity as the Thing. Also, in different cuts of the movie would show Childs has no visible breath, again implying he was the Thing. Whatever your preference, it's unanimously agreed that the ending is one of the greatest in alternate cinema, as it's still being discussed to this very day. Considered the first part of Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy, the second part being Prince of Darkness and ending within the Mouth of Madness. Who Goes There would be recognized by the science fiction writers of America as one of the most influential and memorable science fiction that has ever been written, and was inducted into the Science Fiction Hall of Fame in 1983, credited for inspiring Invasion of the Body Snatchers and Ridley Scott's Alien. In 1999, there was to be a direct sequel, starring Kurt Russell reprising his role as MacReady. This, however, never passed the scripting stage. In 2000, McFarlane Toys would release two collectible 6-inch figures as part of their Movie Maniacs series. The Norris Creature and the Blair Monster would feature alongside horror icons as Freddy, Jason, and Leatherface. In 2002, a sequel would eventually be released in the form of a PlayStation 2, Xbox, and PC game. Endorsed by John Carpenter, who announced the game's storyline as canon, seeing a second team sent to explore Outpost 31 to discover the mystery of what happened and uncover the fate of R.J. MacReady. In 2003, the Sci-Fi Channel pitched a 4-hour miniseries to accompany the movie. This would never be greenlit, but would ultimately serve as concept for the 2011 prequel of the same name. There were several comic books to expand upon the original movie The Thing from Another World, but only one that would be canon to the 82 feature. Entitled The Northman Nightmare, and its sequel Climate of Fear, released by Dark Horse Comics, the story would tell of the first encounter of the Thing on Earth. Also in 2011, the Thing prequel movie would be released, telling the story of the Norwegian base camp team to originally find the alien craft. The movie was intended to feature the same high-quality practical effects as seen in the 82 movie. However, due to studio interference, the movie was sadly neutered to underwhelming CGI. Unbeknownst to the FX company, Amalgamated Dynamics, their work was almost completely omitted from the picture. As a response, the team would release their own feature, Harbinger Down, a similar tale of a shape-shifting alien aboard a ship that some accept as an unofficial side story, which is set at the same time in 1982. Although underperforming at the box office, Harbinger Down would feature some of the most outstanding practical effects of the 21st century. In 2017, Mondo Games and Project Raygun released the board game Infection at Outpost 31, a hidden identity game where the objective is to discover who the Thing is without being assimilated. There were also 2 other board games to utilize similar gameplay: 2018's Who Goes There by Certifiable Studios, and The Thing the board game by Pendragon Game Studios. In 2018, it was discovered that the originally published novella by John Campbell was a heavily abridged version of a much greater story. Found in the archives of Harvard University, the originally titled Frozen Hell was discovered as the complete story of The Thing. Hoping to raise $1,000 on crowdfunding site Kickstarter in hopes of officially publishing the novel, biographer Alec Navala Lee was overwhelmed to discover the campaign had raised in excess of $150,000. Published by Wildside Press in 2019, the full version of the original novel was finally released to the public. In January of 2020, it was announced that the movie would be remade yet again, this time expanded and featuring the original story as a Universal Blumhouse Pictures joint production. From its original concept in 1938 to the present day, The Thing has evolved and adapted for almost a century, inspiring several of the greatest filmmakers of our generation and fully assimilating itself into pop culture. The Thing is truly unstoppable.
Fuck you too!
Be sure to like and share the video, and please subscribe for more. To follow Demented Pictures on social media, check the description box below. Also, to help the show develop, please consider supporting the show through Patreon. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes updates, lost episodes, and access to all music from the channel. Until next time, this is Mike from Demented Pictures saying, may your movies be bloody and your scares be shitless.